Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to cover today. So I want to cover three main points. First, you are not an imposter. Second, feelings are not facts. And third, I want to get over and break out of that self-doubt infinite loop. So let's talk about some ways to do that. Over 4 years ago, I was thinking about these thoughts, wondering what's happening in my field and where I fit in and why I felt this way. And so I made this really crude diagram, and it's not even aligned properly, but I just did it just to help me understand my own thoughts, and it got a lot of traction, and when Will Wheaton retweeted it, I thought I made it in the world. I'm done. So I kind of want to unpack this a little bit more, especially in the tech world, because as we learn about what's out there and the frameworks that are available and new technology, then we know that the things that we don't know starts to get larger and larger. And what I hope that you'll leave with is that it's your intersection of different things that you know, your experience and your perspective, that brings you value. Research has shown that about 70% of folks feel this way. And I venture to guess that in the tech world, it's probably a lot more, because we're surrounded by smart people and we are constantly bombarded with new thoughts and new ideas. So let's look a little bit differently. I like to think of confidence as on a spectrum, and any given day we'll move back and forth on this spectrum, depending on where we are in our lives and our career. So on the left here we have, the very low confidence. My work's never good enough. Everyone knows more than I do. I don't belong. And on the right we have the really high, maybe overly confident person who's always perfect and thinks they're smarter than everyone, and they should be the one in charge. Now I want to talk about what reality is, the real competence. So if we have a mismatch here between the way you feel about the world, your confidence in your work, and your actual competence, then there's a danger here of what we're calling imposter syndrome. Of course, there could be a mismatch the other direction, which is the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you're really highly confident but not really highly competent. But today we're going to talk about this particular mismatch, where you have a low confidence going into something, but really you are very competent, which I venture to guess most of you are. So some signs that we see here, downplaying accomplishments, you feeling like everything that you do that is successful is luck. You're not sure if you're good enough to work here. Everyone seems really smarter than me. This all could lead to some negative impacts. Your work suffers. You may even suffer physical things like ulcers, back pain, migraines, anxiety, relationship issues, all because of this fear and this anxiety. In 2011, Dr. Valerie Young, in her book, The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women, talked about 5 competency types, which I like to call personas, that kind of embody the different ways that imposter syndrome can manifest itself. The first way we see here is this perfectionist, someone who sets extremely high expectations for themselves, impossible to reach, and every time they make a small mistake, they question their own competence. The expert, someone who feels like they have to know everything, complete all the details before they'll even start a project, apply for a job, or do anything. They're afraid to ask questions even, because asking questions might reveal some bit of their own incompetence. The natural genius maybe grew up, things came easy, so when things don't come easy, then I must be a failure. The soloist feels like I must do everything on my own, and if I have to ask for help, then I'm just not competent. And finally, we have the superhuman, who feels like I have to really compensate for my incompetence by just working really hard around the clock. So which one of these do you most relate to? This is me. At least at some point, I kind of move back and forth between these things. So I want to talk a little bit about bias. And bias is a lot like a colored lens that changes the inputs that we get from the real world and stores them in our brain in a different way than we actually receive them. But we don't know this happens. And you see that red dot, the congruent belief, is something that is already consistent with our current belief system, our current feelings. That is fast-tracked right to the right into the brain. Yes, I knew that was correct. It goes right over there. The other ones take a little bit more time. And when we get a congruent belief, that makes our belief system even bigger, even stronger. This is called confirmation bias. We'll even look for things that are consistent with our current beliefs. And the confirmation bias will also take contradictory beliefs and just reject them completely. We won't even bring them in as a proper input. So I like this cartoon. It says, "I love your work." Oh, their family, they're supposed to say that. Oh, their friends, they have to say that. They're strangers, they have to say that. And when I saw this tweet, I like to read through some of the comments, and one person wrote, "You missed a frame," and so they created this frame. This is confirmation bias, both sides of it, and really like their response. So to compensate for this, what I want you to do is to create a positive feedback board. So anytime you get some positive feedback, I know it may not register correctly, write it down, put it on your wall, and just save it there for later. You shouldn't expect other people to write these notes for you, but write them for yourself. Just write your note. You did a great job in that project. It doesn't matter how you feel about it at that point. Just put it on the wall. The next time you need a little boost of confidence, look at your positive feedback board. All right, next I want to talk about self-doubt. Now, if you've ever seen The Awkward Yeti, you'll know that all of their cartoons have a brain and a heart. And so the brain is saying to the heart, the feelings, it'd be easier if we put this down. So what I want to kind of talk about is that this self-doubt becomes this coping mechanism that helps us deal with the fact that we may not be able to live up to this high standard that we've set for ourselves. And let's go through what happens with someone that has maybe a lower confidence. Of course, they're going to have some uneasy feeling. They'll start to question themselves. I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what I'm doing. Do I belong? I'm really not as smart as everyone else. And that leads to this negative internal talk. I'm an imposter. I'm probably going to fail at this. I'm not good enough. I shouldn't even start because I can't even do it right. And even if the event leads to success, the success is discounted as luck. And if there's failure, well, then the loop starts over again. But let's look at someone with higher confidence. Yes, they have self-doubt. Yes, they have uneasy feelings. And yes, they question themselves. But here's where the difference happens. How they respond to this self-questioning. This self-questioning is healthy. It means, wait, I need to pay attention here. Something is wrong. What can I do about it? And what I do is I see this as an opportunity to learn. I have a growth mindset. I view this as a challenge, something that I can take on. I'm going to start researching, gather evidence, ask questions. I'm going to look at, maybe there's a bias here that I have and try to break that bias. I'm going to create some goals around maybe there's something I can do better here and try to do it better next time. They're okay with failure. I mean, if you think about us in the software world, we're always talking about fail fast. They know that if they fail fast, they'll learn from that opportunity and then iterate and do it better next time. And if they do have success, they take it on. They accept it. They own it. This is something that I did. And they allow themselves to increase their own self-esteem. And their confidence will grow. So Very similar concepts. A couple weeks ago, I was talking to a skydiver, and I was like, there's no way I could ever do this. If I ever saw land like that, there's no way. I'm too scared. Falling afraid of heights, afraid of falling. There's no way I could do this. And what he said in response to that really stuck with me. It's not that I no longer have fear, I just know how to manage it better. That's the same with highly confident folks. They still have fear, they just know how to manage it better. So, what I've done to help us move from maybe a lower confidence to a higher confidence is to create a growth mindset worksheet. This is just some of the questions that you'll see on the worksheet. This will help you journal and write about your thoughts and feelings. Questions about what do you think is going to go well? What do you think will go well? How have you prepared yourself for this? And there's a before something happens and an after something happens part of this journal. Yeah, we used to say when we were a kid, I can draw, give me this paper. And then as we start learning about masterpieces and the complexity of art and brushes and things like that, we start to say, well, I can't draw. But it's not that we can't draw. You can draw if you want to. It's just you need to practice, right? So the right answer is, I can't draw well right now, but I could if I wanted to. And hopefully, as you work through these things, you'll be more confident to deal with whatever comes your way. Tim Daugherty this morning said, concrete failure is better than just some unknown sense of failure. And I think that's what this worksheet does. His talk was about TDD, that I know what the tests are, they're failing, therefore I know what I need to fix. Same idea here. When you have this unknown sense of failure, I don't really know why, but I don't feel comfortable here, this makes you write out your thoughts and really understand why you feel this way. So if you're an imposter, no, you're not. If you're an individual contributor, tell your imposter story. Now, this doesn't have to be on the channel here, but we do have a Slack channel during the conference. Tell somebody you're familiar with. Tell them you're working through this worksheet and you need their help. Make sure you understand where your bias is, where your confirmation bias may be. And of course, having a growth mindset is important. Understanding that you can fail, that's okay, that you can iterate. And ask questions. Not everyone is good at communicating knowledge. And so it's important that you ask questions. Asking questions is an important way to learn. I mean, think about little kids. That's all they do is ask questions. Understanding that you have to embrace this feeling of not knowing. And see it as an opportunity to grow. As we mentioned, keeping that positive feedback board and own your successes. These are yours. I think it's important to also compliment other people. When you see people that do know something more than you do, tell them, I really admire how much you know about that. Can I learn from you? And I think it's important for you to mentor others. I've been a big brother in the big brother, big sister system, and I think that's extremely valuable. And then finally, as I kind of mentioned back when we did the tweet, define your unique perspective. What is it about you? What about your background, about the things that you know, your unique combination of things that gives you value? And if there are any leaders in this room, I want to just mention a couple more points. Tell your imposter story, especially to your directs. Bounce credit back. Don't take it from your direct reports. Make sure that you tell them that you appreciate their work. And from time to time, tell them exactly what it is that you appreciate that they bring to the team. Their expertise, ability to follow through, their motivation or organizations, whatever it is. Make sure you tell them because they're probably going to write it down on a Post-it note and put it on their board. So, let's see what we covered. So, you are not an imposter. Feelings are not facts. And break out of this self-doubt loop. And I have some resources here for you if you're interested in getting the slides later. Thank you.